No. It's good. It's fixed. You know what? It's fixed. It's fixed. It's fixed. It just it's still the reverb from before. That's all. All right. Yeah, I guess we can start now. Sorry about that, guys. The Mr. Noob for live streams going on here. Anyways, so the reason we're here this evening is to discuss a few matters that I guess a little bit personal to me. There is a company called Syan. You know what? Let's just put up the link now, I guess. And entire screen, right?
Yeah.
And share. Okay. Whoa.
Yeah, you can go into it, select a specific application. Like if you go in an application window instead of your entire screen.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Application window. All right.
And it might get funky if you try to do it with Chromium. So if you've got Firefox.
Yeah, I'm on Chrome. That's probably what the problem is. Yeah. Okay, you know what? Can you guys put it up or no? Or anyway.
Yeah, just real quick, if you just like open the link in Firefox instead of Chrome, it's just sometimes like if you're trying to window share only a Chrome window from the Hangouts, it gets real weird and doesn't work.
Gotcha.
Cool.
All right. And here we go. I think we're on. All right. And you guys see it? Or no?
I don't see it.
All right. So, application window. And this is it. Good. Here we are. Here's an article written by Talon himself, aka Scott. This is regarding a company called Cyan Technologies. This company came out, I guess, around early September, claiming that they have these water-cooled, extremely efficient ASICs miners. And, so pretty much they hyped everybody up, including myself. So when I said before, it's, kind of personal to me. I lost half a Bitcoin in this. And my partner also, who's probably going to be jumping in on the show, lost half a Bitcoin. And there's some other people that we know also, that have lost to this, well, it turns out to be a confirmed scam now.
Pretty much, yeah.
I mean, we're not getting a response from anybody. And well, that's the situation, right?
Yeah,
so I decided to kind of bring you guys on the show. So it's in no way am I trying to say that this is like Scott's fault or anything like that. He's a very respected journalist, does fantastic work in the space. So that's not my intention, just to, as a disclaimer. But I thought it would be great to discuss it. Also,
I think it would be too.
Yeah, also Shinobi Monkey. One of the ways I actually seen your article, Scott, was not from, reading Bitsonline. Shinobi Monkey did actually a block digest, which promoted Cyan. He promoted your. Okay, well,
we discussed it in the context of mining competition.
Okay, right.
Although I do acknowledge we didn't explicitly warn people to be careful with it if they were to consider buying it, and I do kind of feel bad like that, and that was a little irresponsible to not have an explicit disclaimer like that.
Right. I mean, I'm not playing the blame game, but it would be good to discuss the issue. Well,
here, let me give you a little bit of the process on how I actually ended up even talking to these people, because one of the things that people don't know, kind of in the behind the scenes in the journalism business, is like we get bombarded. Like if you specialize in some certain area, especially in this industry, if you specialize in mining or you specialize in ICOs or any of that stuff, you get bombarded with emails and contact stuff from different companies. I actually have 2 pre-production units from 2 different companies that I won't even speak about, because when I called, one of them did a test tape out from Global Foundries and had no actual intention of actually doing a full tape out, even if they got fully funded, which I found out. The other one was with TSMC, which they actually taped out a 14 nanometer ASIC for a test tape out, and they built some pre-production units and sent them out to several of us in the industry. And then I found out that they were actually going around trying to shop this to other chip manufacturers as opposed to going to build them themselves, and yet they wanted to, promotion for their pre-sale of them. So it wasn't that they didn't have products, and that's one of those things that can kind of trip you up. So you have to do your homework on it. The deal with Syan is one of my contacts told me about them and that they were working on masking out a chip, and that was also at the 14 nanometer process. So I was able, when I reached out to them, because I received several emails from them, but I hadn't actually taken them seriously at that point. And when I reached out to them, I talked to this gentleman, his name is Clive, who was one of their, let's see here exactly what he did, but it was like marketing or something like that. And I started talking to him, trying to get more information. I got the information on the parent company and this stuff. And so it was one of those things that as I started going through, I started seeing there were connections. I started, finding that, like I said, I was a third party had told me about them. It kind of went from there. And then I asked a lot of questions. I'm like, have you taped anything out? Are you that far along? Is there even a pre-production unit that I can see or get my hands on? I even offered to buy one, which I usually do because I don't expect somebody to send me something for free, just so that I could see what they have and what they don't have. And they were like, no, we're actually in the process of finishing up our chip. We're going to send it out to be masked out for our pre-production testing. And from there, we're expecting to ship in, the beginning Q1 to Q2. So pretty much things went okay from there. And then I was able to get in contact through Clive with Koji, which was pretty cool because I'd heard of him before and he seemed to answer all the right questions. So then I went through and did the interview. And the problem is it's like you can try to verify as much as you can, but until you can get something in your hands, and even when you have it in your hands, like I said, with these other two production units, it's not even necessarily that they're going to produce them, which is really frustrating because one of the scams that went on not too long after the whole Butterfly Lab stuff was a lot of these little companies would go, and because the technology was there, you can quickly pump out a 28 nanometer and a 16 nanometer chip as long as you get the design. And a lot of these little companies would go and they would mask out their test strips. They would get them, throw them in a few pre-production units and, port them around and then sell a whole bunch of miners based on that and then just walk away. So it's kind of frustrating. And when I discussed this stuff with them, they seem to be very on the up and up, and they seem to be open, answered a lot of the questions. And a third party who I spoke to, had told me the information. I mean, they're actually a chip manufacturer themselves that, about Syan. So it's not that they weren't doing something, but it's turning out that either they were a scam from the start and they were blowing smoke up a lot of people's asses, not just mine and other journalists and other sites, or they actually intended to do this because there was actual real activity but didn't have any idea how to pull it off. One of the things that you find as well is even if they can tape out chips and do full production, a lot of these companies can't even ramp up the production because it's difficult to get that first product out. You have your design, you have everything set up the way that you want it, and when you go to actually have them built on a bigger scale, you have to get people that can do this. You have to have some sort of quality control testing, and you actually have to have the environment to do it. And it turns out that a lot of these companies have no idea about this. Syan really bothers me because it's one of those things I try to do as much homework as I could. I talked to people. I had that third party reference from them that really gave me some sort of, a little bit of reassurance about it where I didn't have it with some of the other companies. And then all of a sudden their site disappears. They stop talking to me. About the time that they stopped talking to everybody, like a month or two ago now, and which was really frustrating because in the time they've been, we're getting ready to do our pre-production units. We'll make sure you get one so you can see it, give us some feedback. It's one of the things that I also do with some companies is I get miners before they even hit, before they're even announced, and I help with some of the firmware and stuff like that in the testing. So it's not uncommon for me to get a lot of stuff, or at least be, have somebody approach me and ask me for my help or my information. And it's, on that. And Syan really bothers me because I thought in talking to both Clive and Koji, and my third party that I was actually talking to somebody who is legitimate. Now I can't even get a hold of the supposed parent company who would verify, who could either verify, yes, they're part of, you know, a subsidiary of us, or hey, we don't even know who the hell they are. So that is even more weird, simply because that parent company apparently does a lot of stuff outside the crypto space. You know, it's frustrating, and I really hate it because I don't want to deceive any readers, and I certainly don't want somebody to be tricked into something because I do that. You know, I write up an article or I do an interview, and it's immensely frustrating. So I've been working on a follow-up interview, and as you notice in the comments section, we have some of the commenters who are actually, you know, doing some pretty good stuff. One of the gentlemen has a Survey Monkey survey to kind of get in on doing a class action lawsuit and stuff like that. And then we have some other guys who are posting information on the domains and whatnot. I think it's very important, and I'm glad that people are engaged in this. I'm taking all this very seriously to make sure that I put all this information in a, you know, in a new article, update it, because I'm really upset about this. This frustrates me. I don't like things to slide by me. They usually don't. I mean, and I've learned my lesson the hard way. You know, I went through the whole shit with GAW where everything I was reporting on them, I had just enough truth given to me to keep me reporting, not knowing that the owner of Crypto Coins News was accepting a shitload of money and altering my articles behind my back until the emails were leaked. So, you know, that's another thing that would have changed the way that you report. And I've tried to learn from all the stuff that happened there and do a better job and help. You know, at one point I was running several of the top industry news sites behind the scenes, help writers and journalists in the space see scams and be able to catch them. So, I mean, this really bothers me. And I'm hoping that we can either there's something going on, we can get a product, but I'm mostly hoping we can find these people and get the money back, because that really pisses me off. I really dislike this. I'm angry about it. I'm frustrated, and I feel stupid and duped after working so hard these last several years to make sure that this kind of stuff doesn't happen.
Right. Yeah, it became suspicious. Like the last time we actually had somebody from customer service actually respond to us was like last week of December. And before that, there was like 3 weeks they weren't responding. We actually even got a hold of Go URL, but to see like, you know, because they're the payment processor.
Yeah.
To see, you know, if they can contact them or know anything or you know, have any information. They weren't really too responsive either.
Which kind of surprised me, because they have to actually gather enough information to be able to be a payment processor. They're, you know, on the on the companies they're processing funds for. It's not like you can just anonymously set something up. You can partially, I guess, but at the same time, you would think that they would have more of the AML KYC information, because I know that when we set up for payment processors for different sites and different companies, you have to, you know, give them quite a bit of information, and they usually verify it before they okay it. So,
right. I don't know what to say. Really, I mean, it's pretty much a cash grab from this point. I mean, Go URL is not doing anything. You know, and their site is still up. I mean, it was down for a little while, and it's still up. And I think you mentioned, Scott, that it.
I couldn't see the site when I use VPNs, obviously, and I couldn't see the site when I was using U.S. portals. But when I switched it over to a portal in Europe and to actually a Canadian portal, the site would come up. And in fact, I saw that they even added a Litecoin miner to the page, you know, that they're now supposedly selling. But I could not see it from a U.S. URL, which was surprising to me. Means that there's something going on in the background. You know, there's somebody there.
Shinobi, have you heard any updates in regard to this matter?
No, I mean, honestly, like, you know, you mentioned we discussed this on Block Digest, but for the most part, we were kind of just discussing it in the context of like mining competition heating up. Like that was around the time that GMO from Japan announced that they were going to be developing their own 7-nanometer chips, I believe. And it was kind of just in the context of like, oh, hey, Bitmain, like, you know, you're not the only kid on the block anymore. And like I said, I feel kind of bad that we didn't frame things a little more cautiously and kind of, you know, warn people, if you are looking to purchase anything, like do your due diligence, because, you know, like I said, we were mostly kind of just discussing it in the context of the overall landscape and not really the product itself. And
Right. Well, no,
it
what
really
you
sucks.
understand. Yeah,
Because
totally.
this just illustrates like how easy it is to scam in this space. Like you kind of just do your homework, you see the kind of criteria that usually is met for whatever you're claiming to do, and then you just meet that minimum bar and parade that around. And I mean, like Scott, like you were saying, like as a journalist in this space, that's a really kind of tough thing to deal with, because there are going to be people out there who are going to prey on you, try to mislead you, and kind of just trick you into acting as like a spokesperson or a salesman without really fully letting you clue yourself into what's going on. And it's
frustrating.
really like, how do
and
you
can actually have face-to-face meetings with some of these people, and you still get, you still get scammed, which is just, it sucks. It sucks. And it's so difficult, and it's frustrating when something slips through.
So what's going to happen now? Do you think this will affect, for example, like we're skeptical now about, Dragonmint. Why not? Okay, I understand BTC Drag, and Adam Back did the whole, the whole tweet thing and stuff, but like, where do we draw the line of like trust? Like, I mean,
it's a subjective thing. I mean, really, like if you look at this space, it is pretty much just webs of trust. It's people who over time build up that trust between each other and kind of extend that referentially further out to people. And I mean, really, at the end of the day, like not even just with Bitcoin, like in life in general, like you have to depend on the integrity of your webs of trust and actually weed out people that you find are like bad nodes in that web. And I mean, it's
exactly. And one of the things when you're saying that too, you're bringing up a good point with like Dragonmint, simply because they're so high profile, because they're much higher profile than some of these smaller companies. And even when you see like GMO in Japan, it's one of those things. I know that they have been working on 7-nanometer process. They also had a 12-nanometer that was supposed to be out first as they continued to work their way down. The thing with Dragonmint, in building this web of trust, you literally have 4 developers working on, getting this ASIC out. They have pre-production units that are out that they are demoing to people. So they've actually got their first test tape out to get things going. And it's hard. Like I said before, it could be, it could be that all this stuff is great and they could run into production problems, just being unable to scale up and get production going. Or it could be that they aren't able to actually get a tape out that actually works, because one of the things like Bitfury's run into in the past that I actually know of and was well documented, they had a tape out, and when it came out, the chips underperformed. The same thing happened with InnoSilicon at one point. And some of these people can throw a lot of money at it and have everything set up and still, have a mess. I'm not thinking that's going to go on with Dragonmint, simply because they have a lot more skin in the game in this. It's not just about, creating an ASIC and getting an ASIC on the market. For them, it's also about trying to keep things decentralized, because they don't want to see Bitmain and Bitfury and InnoSilicon and all these, these few other companies just dominate the market. So I think that they're going to be coming out, and I think that they're going to be okay. But I do think they might have growing pains, and we're going to have to keep an eye on that as to growing pains. Are they going to be able to ship it, as many at a time as they think they are going to be? Are they going to be able to receive enough money to actually do the second tape out and the next batch and the next batch and get them out in a timely manner? So I think that's something that we have to keep in mind, because again, it might not be that they're a scam, but once they ramp up production, it might be, there's some stuff that they just aren't ready for. And and a lot of people forget Bitfury, Bitmain, InnoSilicon, and a lot of these other companies have been doing this for years. So they've refined the process, and they have it set up so that if there are bugs or problems, they're able to easily adapt. But when you're a first-time manufacturer and you're getting going, there's just so many moving parts. And once it gets out of your hands and into your production facility hands, you lose even more control over it. Even though you're the one paying the money, you're doing it all, but you do lose control.
So the reason I got Danny on here, I want to get Danny's opinion here. The reason I got him on here mainly is because he's like the guy who always advocates on his shows, let's not follow anybody. Let's not cling on to any group, or because this is like a trust issue. So I would like to hear from Danny, like, how is it in a decentralized community such as Bitcoin? How do we establish a line of trust to prevent situations like like this situation?
Okay, well, Daniel, not Danny, please.
Sorry, Daniel. Sorry.
And so you should recognize that every person is your enemy under certain circumstances. So no web of trust has unbreakable links. They all have stretchy links. And there's no reason that someone can't be your enemy one week and your friend the next week. Everybody is a con artist under certain circumstances.
You've got a good point. It could be Fried Cat, actually. Thinking back in the ASIC thing, is it got to the point where everybody trusted him, which to the point that companies like Rock Miner and other smaller groups invested with him, and once he got the money, he disappeared, which nobody was expecting for this last generation of what would have been ASIC miner chips. And that was you're right, though, somebody's only as trustworthy until they're not, and it's kind of hard to know when they're not going to be. I think that was very astute point.
Yeah, and I mean, in a way, it's kind of the similar dynamic to just how markets function. Like, you're a profitable company until you're not. Like, you're successful until you're not. And I mean, like, yeah, that's an excellent point. Like, things are dynamic and changing, and you really should keep an eye on that in general. I mean, a common attitude in the Bitcoin space is that anybody currently supporting like Bitcoin Core's current roadmap is just like a core groupie. Well, no. In my case, I support that because I agree with the trade-offs up until the point that roadmap ends and that goal. And if for some reason they start proposing things I disagree with, I'm going to be very loudly against that. And that is how everybody should treat things. Like, think things through for yourself and don't just blindly follow oracles.
Oh, and I should reference my friend Michael Goldstein's article, "Everyone's a Scammer," because that's one of the more important articles on the Satoshi Nakamoto Institute page. Sorry.
Yeah. By the way, just a good page. Lots of good references on there. So how can I don't know, what solution do we have for this? I mean, do we just okay, we trust nobody, but how do we move forward, right? So there's companies so Syan first, now Dragon Mint, and I mean, unfortunately, we can trust Bitmain. That's the worst, that's the scary part, right? Is we can actually put trust and faith in Jihan Wu.
But let's wind back to remember, he had firmware set up in his machines that would have allowed him to remotely just shut your machine off, and in some instances actually destroy the machine if it was powered on and not receiving work and actually functioning.
But that's not quite 100% true, because that's not what it was for. They had a very public testing period for a couple of years where it was going to be this thing that was like MyRig or something like that. It was software to help people manage their bigger mining farms as they continued to grow. That was a hook that was in there for that. It wasn't. I'm not saying that we should trust them, but I'm saying that AntBleed was not AntBleed. It was an actual feature that was built into the firmware so that they could manage mining farms, and they decided to abandon the product and did not take it out of there. Now, I'm not saying don't to trust them. Believe me, that's not my point. But my point is that that narrative isn't telling the whole truth, because this wasn't, something that was in there maliciously. It was actually in there to give people because mining farms are starting to get bigger and bigger. People are buying more and more miners. This was actually going to be a way from the manufacturer to give them a product that could also help manage that. So I'm not saying trust them, and I'm not saying that that it should have been in there after they decided to not go forward with the project, but that's not what it was built for, and it was very public. It was never a secret thing. It was, they used to.
Yeah,
have
but
it
my
on
point
the
is,
website,
it's a security hole in their devices that wasn't
Yes.
removed after that product was discontinued. And I mean,
Yeah.
in my mind,
agree.
that's something where you should question your trust of them, because they were effectively
Right.
selling you a product with a security hole.
And like I said, I agree with that. They should have taken it out when they abandoned the project. But I mean, it wasn't actually put there maliciously, which is what the narrative was. And I personally, I look at things objectively. I'm not here to support them, and I'm not here to bash them. I'm trying to look at it objectively with the facts as they were. And that is one thing that bothers me, the whole ant bleed thing, because it was not something that was set up for that. It was not a secret. It was an actual product. It was on their site for a very long time. There was those of us that actually got our hands on the software to test it, and it was getting there. Wasn't quite what you needed, but I totally agree with you, though. They should have removed it as soon as they dropped the project, put out a firmware, because that was a very big exploit. If the domain had lapsed, that they all called into and somebody else had picked it up, they could have done a man-in-the-middle attack. They could have, like you said, went right down and burnt the chips right down to the ground. So it's definitely something to look into. But the narrative that it was, not that it was some secret thing is just, it's incorrect, and that should be, that should be remedied. I'm not supporting them as far as that. I'm just the facts, and the facts are there.
Yeah, I get you.
I'm sorry, I don't mean to get so adamant about it. It's just one of those
Oh
things.
no,
that
I entirely get you, man. You make sure you're actually giving an objective view of anything.
So, I mean, where do we go from here? Because we're delving into like other issues now, right? So like when we have like, let's say, not only so there's like scams and who do we believe, but now how far should we go when it comes to speech in this community, and how far should we go when it comes to writing in this community? I mean, I see all these articles, man, that like I really just heat up my head. I'm serious. Like when it and I mean, hey, it's great. We can all speak, right? We're all free to like have our opinions and everything else, right? But like we're in a space right now where, I mean, the scene is moving and growing so rapidly that there's actually people that actually like catch on and actually believe a lot of this stuff. And it's like 90% either scam, lies, or just like, pointing the finger at these guys, and it's so toxic. As a community, we're not really growing. We're actually just destroying each other.
Yes.
As you see what I'm saying, right?
It's like people couldn't stop fighting. Yeah.
Right. And like, the whole big block, like I'm sick of it. Like really, it's at this point, it's and what I do see is amongst like the old schoolers, like that, small blockers or whatever. Now there's becoming a divide amongst them, right? So there's.
But I mean, is that bad though?
Well, what is it? What's it? Well, I don't know. Let's discuss it. That's exactly what I want to bring on the table. Is it good? And can we actually? Where are we going with this? If this is the way we're going to be going, are we going to get somewhere?
I think this is a very healthy sign. Like the fact that you are seeing what was once a homogenous community continue to fracture and break up and subdivide, but the underlying system that they like come together to create is still functioning. I think that's very healthy and a very good sign.
Yeah,
because it's showing that this is working without that like fan club just on the same page.
Exactly. But the other thing too is though in the breakup and in the fact that we have so many voices that have so many different views, and especially when there's like the two major ones that everybody's fighting over, big block, small block. One of the things that really comes to my mind, and I've said it before and just a minute ago, is the groups don't know how to stop fighting anymore and get back to discussing. You can disagree on stuff and discuss it and look for new ways and fracture and everything else. But especially once Bitcoin Cash was created, the big blockers got what they wanted. The small blockers got what they wanted. They got SegWit. The big blockers got the big block. Everybody can move on and argue the differences and stuff like that. But the trolling and the personal attacks just never stopped. It was like people couldn't stop. They couldn't help themselves anymore. It's been 2 years of this constant infighting. So now we're at a point where we've got some really great things coming out. We got all the stuff with Lightning is on the main net, so that's great with them. There are things that even Bitcoin Cash and other coins are actually doing and developing, which is coming along. But instead of really discussing it, seems like anytime you especially in the news industry, we try to do objective news. We cover everything. Doesn't matter whether it's Bitcoin, Bitcoin Cash, Dash, whatever. And one of the things that I notice is it's like if we just put out an article about the new, what's going on with the Lightning Network, and I get a shitload of hate mail. Why the fuck are you supporting them and blah blah blah. Well, just the other day when we wrote something about Bitcoin Cash, I got burnt the same way. Why are you guys fucking shilling for Bitcoin Cash? And the thing that it comes down to is like they can't stop for a second and say, hey, or see that we're not shilling for anything. We're giving you the information. We're giving it to you in an objective way so that you can make your decision, so that you can discuss things, and so that we can move forward, because there are so many good things going on. I mean, in fact, today I was just fooling around with the stuff on Shore signatures, or Schnorr. I'm not pronouncing it right, but it was something that I was digging more into. I actually have 3 Lightning nodes that I work and do testing on because I really like the technology, and there are people
Sorry, I've got the answer to the trolling problem. I can totally fix that. Just everybody behave like Bitcoin is a big poker game, and just assume that everybody has a reason to lie constantly. And if you do that, there's no reason to troll, because all signals are assumed to be noise. So anyone who presumes to say something that is true should be willing to lay money down on it against anyone who should make the opposite bet.
Well, I mean, like Scott, I think it's a lot more nuanced than that, than just people won't stop fighting. Because like I do see, like, not all the time, but I do see honest discussions between, like, say, a Bitcoin Cash supporter and a Bitcoin supporter.
We're getting them more, yes, but
wait. I have to chime in here too, because if people had agreed that they needed to put money down in order to say what the future of Bitcoin is going to be, there also wouldn't have been fighting, because that would allow for
it's not that
before
simple,
anybody
though.
did anything.
Yeah, because Roger Ver could have bought out everybody if it was just the money part.
That would solve the problem. Then there would not be fighting. That is the way to resolve the fighting.
I didn't get a chance to really make the point that I was.
Sorry about that.
Is that?
Oh, sorry.
There's actually, like, in a lot of cases, like, the trolling is people trolling somebody who is actually lying, like, not just saying something that they disagree with, but outright lying. Like, when you look at a lot of,
you wouldn't need to do that if people had to put money down.
Yeah, but we don't have a platform like that, Daniel. We have Reddit.
Okay, well, why don't you start building it?
Charge money for that, because that's not going to.
You don't need to troll people if they have to put money down when they presume to say something that's true.
Please let me finish. Like, even if you do build that platform, that's not going to just magically uproot everybody from Twitter and Reddit and put them on that platform. Twitter and Reddit will still be relevant. They will still be places that this discussion is happening, and people will continue lying.
Well, stupid people will use them. The platform will systematically benefit people who use it, so they should.
How do you force people to use it? That's
because no, you don't have to. They will benefit from it because people who have good information will make money off of it.
I wish it was that easy. I wish we could create a platform that was that easy, but then you also leave out the people that don't have the resources to do that.
Let's all agree to do that. Let's all agree on the platform
first. That doesn't fix anything. I mean, if you look at, like, Roger and his spree on CNBC, where he was literally using personal connections with people at the network. Someone will go to a platform bigger than the one you're trying to build and spread those lies to more people. And that's part of the issue that leads to this evolution into trolling. There's no other
Bitcoin is a big poker game, and people don't act like it's a poker game. If everybody learned that Bitcoin is a poker game, then we wouldn't need trolls.
I kind of disagree, Danny, because if we had to put money down, the trolling would stop. Well, I don't think so. And I'll give you an example. There was just that video that was something Blockstream or whatever. I mean, this
Oh
was
my
an
God!
actual.
Fuck off!
This was actual production. This was like they actually spent money on this. They had to pay people and like da-da-da, and they put a lot of money into making this video in order to troll Blockstream. I mean,
Yeah.
or big blocks. And actually, trolling is becoming an industry.
Yeah.
So I don't know, maybe. I mean, I like what you're saying. It makes sense because it's like a proof of stake system for trolling. But I don't know, especially with bad players like Roger Ver. I don't know. Unfortunately, it's come to that point with him.
Well, what's bad about Roger Ver?
Well,
He lies constantly.
yeah. It's gotten to the point. I mean, I respected his opinions at one point. I was like, okay, but now it's coming to like this, I mean, sock puppet central. Even though he denies his whole movement behind him. I mean, they're clearly lies.
You'll have to give me a lot more background. I have no idea what you're talking about.
Yeah,
his birds.com Twitter site where he paid people to tweet and retweet things. And also in terms of lies, if you remember the off-chain interview with Jimmy Song where Roger
I have never heard Roger Ver talk.
Well, he just lies constantly. Like he said on off-chain with Jimmy Song that back in the day, it was a consensus rule that the first seen unconfirmed transaction would be included in a block. And that's just nonsensical because consensus rules only have anything to do with what's in a block. That's literally how miners solve the double spend problem is they put it in a block and the consensus rules enforce what's in the block. And he not only lied, but he displayed a complete lack of even understanding on a technical level what the double spend problem is and how Bitcoin solves it. And he just lies like that constantly.
Okay.
Yeah, I affirm that. That's
There's a massive amount of this material out, especially from the last year when he's become much more vocal, for his views. So I mean, hopefully you can look at some of it and draw your own conclusions because I won't tell people either way whether he's right or wrong, other than technical stuff. When he makes mistakes on how technical Bitcoin works technically, then that's definitely something to call him out at.
I think it's better not to pay attention to most of this stuff. See, I'm a big advocate of laziness, so I actually think that it's better to avoid knowing about these kinds of things.
Well, unfortunately, this is the Bitcoin scene. Like, I have to be up to date with everything. I mean, I trade. I mean, price is affected by everything. You kind of can't ignore any of these things. I mean, Bitcoiners.
Yeah, you can.
Like, this is a lifestyle. I mean, it's either a Bitcoiner or you're not, right? So
why can't you ignore it? I think you can ignore it.
You can. You can filter out what's BS and what's not. But apparently, I can't because I got scammed with the whole Syan-Scammed thing. You see what I'm saying, right? Like thinking like I'm the guy that like calls out the scammers publicly on shows, on all the live chats or whatever. And I'm the one that still gets scammed. Do you see what I'm saying, right?
And you also have to worry about willful ignorance through not educating yourself. Because
I think that's a good idea.
As much as it would be nice, and I'm looking at this from an objective, journalistic part of the thing. It's like if there are a lot of people that support Core that just don't want to see somebody report on Bitcoin Cash, and it's not because there's a lie or somebody was spreading something. It's just simply because they think that if it's not reported, that it'll go away. But if you don't report it and there's something major, or there's a glitch, or there's some information that really would make a difference in your decision, and I'm not saying for or against it, but if you're not paying attention to what's going on, you could actually make a decision that could cost you or others money simply because you haven't, you're not educated in it. This is what is so great about forks is it pushes the mistakes entirely away from the investor. Yes. See, so investors don't have to know. That's what's great about them. And in all honesty, our niche is so small that most people, the average user of Bitcoin and the products right now, right down to Coinbase users, a lot of them don't even look at any of the industry news. They don't look at industry news. They don't go to Reddit. They don't go to Bitcoin Talk, any of that stuff. So they don't know all this stuff, which is fine. And that does go with what you're saying, Daniel. But at the same time, when there are people that need to make informed decisions and they're purposely not paying attention to the stuff that doesn't fit their point of view, that leaves them with a willful ignorance gap where they aren't actually making the best informed decision for themselves. But
no. There's sometimes when it's really good. Ignorance is good. You need to figure out exactly where the best place to be ignorant is. Okay.
But real quick, Daniel, like that,
decide where to be ignorant.
It's only pushing the risk away from investors if you were a hodler prior to a fork. Like anybody coming into the space now, they have to look at these and differentiate and make a judgment between them because they can only buy one of them with the money they have. Like they didn't get these forks.
No, they could just split the money by the same price and buy the equal amounts of each.
That's an opportunity cost. Like if you don't make the correct gain and just split evenly, you're losing profit potentially because you didn't take the time to educate yourself and make the optimal call between them. So it's like you are making an opportunity cost that you should be informed in making. Otherwise, you're just gambling.
Right. That's why it's better to have bought Bitcoin a long time ago.
Well, that'll always.
Not everybody knew about it. Yeah, since 2009, most people thought I was nuts and didn't know what it was. It was magic internet money, and they thought I was crazy. And now it's worth $10,000 plus a coin, 10 to 12,000 right now. And it's yes, it would have been better to get in early, but for those that simply didn't know about it, the average user wasn't reading tech sites. They weren't reading tech magazines. They aren't on the cypherpunk sites we were on. They don't go to Reddit. They don't go to all the things that we did. So they had no information for that. And if they didn't go looking for information, they wouldn't even be getting into it now. I mean, I do see your point, but at the same time, you can't be willful ignorant on certain subjects because this
yes,
could
I
be
can. No, I've chosen very carefully what to be willfully ignorant on. So I can definitely be willfully ignorant on any subject that I want.
And that's great for you, but it doesn't work for everybody.
And it's great for lots of other people too. You should definitely, I think that I've made very good choices about what to be willfully ignorant on. So I think that it's great for other people to also choose the same things to be willfully ignorant on as I have.
But without actually educating yourself, you don't know what to choose to be willfully ignorant of.
Yes, I do.
Yeah. Well, you
don't know anything about it. You don't know how to ignore it.
I'll give you an example, Daniel. So let's say, I know, Daniel, you're not into the whole altcoin thing, right? Which I totally understand. Neither am I. But like all the noobs that are coming in now, I got people trying to convince me that Stellar or whatever shitcoin's way better than Bitcoin, and they're like, no, man, I know, and I'm like, when you watch like 2 YouTube videos and now you're trying to educate me, right? And this is actual like a cause and effect of what's going on. People actually believe in these BitConnect and all this stuff, and this is because of willful ignorance. They see a couple of videos or read an article, and then they follow this and they invest their money, and you know what? Even they borrow money so they can fall into these scams.
Yeah, and this is so prevalent.
No, it is not because of willful ignorance. I disagree. I don't think it's because of willful ignorance.
Prevalent that a friend of mine, Rick from the Black Digest, was out on his balcony yesterday, and a father and like a 2 or 3 year old kid were walking by, and the kid was just going, "BitConnect, BitConnect." Like, that kind of ignorance and damage is hitting ridiculous penetration levels as far as the population at large. And like the bigger that gets, the more damage this will concretely cause to real people. Like I saw people when BitConnect collapsed, like literally one guy was like, I took out the 20 grand in the savings, put it all into BitConnect and had 80 grand and just lost everything. I don't work. My wife doesn't even know I did this, and I have 3 kids to feed. What am I going to do? Like that's an actual person's life. That is not just a number in a statistical analysis. That is somebody's life who is going to be affected because of this not informing himself, not having the information to inform himself or know where to find it. And these are serious problems that affect real people.
And affect Bitcoin.
Right, but the way that I've chosen to be ignorant it isn't going to affect me. See? So there's a big difference.
Okay, can you elaborate on that? Then I'm a little bit confused of what you mean.
Well, because what I've chosen to be ignorant of is anything concerning the conflict between Bitcoin Core and Bitcoin Cash.
Okay. So that's why you like
one of them will
okay.
be one of them will win, and then I will have the same fraction of 21 million as before.
Yeah, but Dan, that advice does not work for anybody who was not here before August 1st, 2017. From that moment onward, every other person who comes into this space, that is not workable advice for.
Right. Like, my show is primarily for people who are older than that.
Right. And that's, you know, that's a valid point, but like I have to say, as somebody that, you know, runs a news site, that you simply, I feel that I would be remiss in only reporting one side or the other, or not putting anything in. I mean, we literally got a cease and desist letter and a threat of a lawsuit from OneCoin simply because we reported on them publicly available factual information. And I still wouldn't have it any other way. I would rather that information went up there, people were able to educate themselves on what was going on and get sued out of existence, than having avoided it simply because it was easier not to talk about it. And, you know, it's the same thing, whether it's Bitcoin Cash and Bitcoin. I would rather report on both the good and the bad of them, so that I, you know, of what's coming out in the news, so that simply a user who is not old school like we are, because we understand it, we've been here, and we have all the context to go with this and the information. I would rather take all the heat from all sides by reporting on all the information from all sides than leave no information. I want people to be as informed as possible at this point, especially because we are seeing millions of new people come into this space. The last thing I want to do is have, you know, through my willful ignorance of not reporting on a specific subject, left them with no recourse, and they pick up BitConnect or they bought into OneCoin. I mean, that's just a horrible thing. And we see things differently as far as that. I feel that I need to give people a platform for information, as opposed to give them a platform of just my views, and things that I don't agree with, I just ignore. I mean, I wouldn't feel right. You know, and it comes right down to like this Syan-Scam. I am doing a follow-up article. I've already noted on the first article. There's no way that I would just ignore this. It's too important to me. And even if nobody lost any money and they disappeared, I would still be following up on this, because the information needs to be there for people to have. And, you know, I can't see leaving out information or ignoring things just because you decide that it's not important to your life, but because most people are not like us, Daniel. They don't have the information. They don't have the background. You know, like I said, in 2009, when I started fooling around with Bitcoin, people thought I was insane. What are you doing, playing with magic internet money? They never understood it. They didn't get that it was no different than a lot of things, but yet different enough that it changes things in a very fundamental shift in the way that you look at money. And we have to educate people so that they can make those decisions in the best possible way. And one of the things that is frustrating is the people that bury their head in the sand and say, no, BitConnect is the best because that's what it said on their page, and they won't read anything else. You know, it just doesn't work for most people. It'll work for you, but it doesn't work for most people.
Okay. Well, it sounds like you did a very good job with the article we were talking about earlier.
Like I said, it slipped by. I did everything I could at the time to make sure that I was verifying as much information as I could get, and I did. And I got screwed. I messed it up. I did not find that they were a scam in time to actually pull back the article. And since I did put it up, I take responsibility for it, and I'm following up with it, and I'm doing another article with the updated information. That's what you need to do. You need to take the responsibility and go forward. If I just buried my head in the sand and let it slip by, that's not right. And that's not doing the right thing for the readers. That's not doing the right thing for the industry. And frankly, it's not doing the right thing for the people that depend on us to report information as we get it.
Well, it sounds like you did a really good job. So thank you.
Shit slips through. I can't say that it doesn't, but I do the best I can.
You did.
You're owning your mistake, and you did as much work as you can. I mean, that's all you can do.
I mean, they could have, like I said, they could have literally sent me a functioning unit and still turned out to be a scam. I have 2 of them right now, which one of them I'm pretty much guaranteed is a scam. So I don't even mention their name because I know that they had no intention of actually producing a miner beyond their first pre-production units. And, you know, we do everything we can. I could even go to a production facility where somebody's building them, physically see it, and still have them turn out to be a scam. I mean, we do everything we can. And I did everything I could up to those steps. And when I found out that, hey, there's something fishy going on, we started following up with it. It's all we can do. You know, you can bash me all you want because I deserve it. It got through. I take that responsibility and I take it very seriously.
And that's like what makes you different than a scam. You know what I mean? You're showing your face and whatever. And we know there was no bad intention on your part or Bitsonline or anything like that. That's not what we're getting at.
I mean, I was very angry.
I mean, anybody can accidentally report bad information. It doesn't sound like there's anything to criticize about your handling of the situation.
And
yeah,
you know, but I criticize myself over it. I wish that there was something else I could have found. I wish I could have known before I reported on it. And if I did find something and did the interview and then found further information that showed it was being a scam, I would have loved to put up the interview and then said, hey, these fuckers are lying. They're a scam. That's what I would have loved to do if this is the way it turned out. And, you know, I can't tell you how much when it started looking like they were going to be a scam, how angry I was. I sat in my recliner in the middle of the night screaming and swearing because I was so pissed off that I missed this. And it's not a joke. Take it that seriously. This is something that, you know, Bitcoin in the cryptocurrency industry has literally saved my life. I wouldn't be here without it. I'd be dead. And it's not a joke. It's not an exaggeration. I take my stewardship of the journalistic end of it very seriously. And you know, this is something that slipped by, and I haven't had very much slip by in a long time. I've learned my lessons the hard way, and I damn well depend on continuing to learn. I'll never pretend I'm an expert in anything because I'm always learning.
Well, is there anything I can do to make you feel better?
No. What'll make me feel better is if we can catch them and get people's money back. Or if they actually are going to produce a unit, make sure that they get it to people who bought it. You know, look at KNC Miner. They're a perfect example. For years, they're a reliable manufacturer of ASICs. And then they got to the point where they're taking people's money, self-mining with the machines, and then not shipping them. Or when they finally shipped them, they only shipped a portion of them, but they waited till after ROI was gone. There was no chance of it unless Bitcoin hit like it did right now at like $10,000. There are all sorts of lawsuits about it, and yet so many people up until that point were reporting on it, and with the information they had, hey, this was a good company, and they were, and now they're defunct. They took a lot of people's money with them, and they turned into a scam, and even that would have burned if it was something that I had reported on. I mean, there's not much that anybody can do to make me feel better unless the people who read this and bought miners were able to be made whole one way or another, because, you know, it's serious. It's a serious thing. It doesn't matter to me whether it's $10 somebody lost or 10,000. It's still a loss, and that's not okay in my book.
Awesome.
Well, I think you have to take the attitude that because of the enormous profits that are being generated in Bitcoin. I mean, is that the right word? People are just getting rich really quickly in Bitcoin,
Sure.
right? And there's lots of opportunity, so there's lots of reason to manipulate information. So
I agree.
you know, I don't think that you can take the attitude that you can get accurate information anywhere, or that you can ever be a perfectly accurate news source.
No, I agree, but that's why we always try to do better, and we always try to go and get as much as we can. And you're right, there is never a point where you can actually be, I think, 100%, but you damn well can be 99%.
Yeah,
you know, this is the 1% that got through on us.
Yeah,
but if you can get away with being 0%, you should choose that, though.
I would.
If you can get away with being 0% knowledgeable, then you should do that.
How would you ever get into mining?
That's a fringe argument, Dan. That's like saying if you're the guy who's already in the perfect position, you can just not care about anything. That's a tiny minority of people.
Right.
But you're advocating it for everybody. Are you not?
No.
That's your methodology.
Well, that's what I'm asking, because that's what it seems like. I mean, it's, you know, for most people, they can't be like us. They can't decide not to learn things. They can't decide that it's, you know, it's time they know enough and to step back because they really don't know anything.
What?
All right, guys. Well, you want to could you say something, Danny? Sorry, I didn't.
Yeah, definitely.
Oh, Daniel, please.
Daniel,
I just didn't understand what he was talking about. Well, you know, my videos are for entertainment purposes, and they are very deceptive videos. So I think that you have to assume that they are videos produced by a con artist.
All right, Daniel. I guess he said it himself. You know, I mean,
I do enjoy
con
them.
artist.
Yeah, I enjoy them too. That's what I'm saying. I can't ever tell if you're being facetious or not. That's the thing.
although I will say, I mean, a healthy dose of skepticism with whatever you read is definitely needed. You know, it definitely is. I mean, that's just it doesn't matter if you go right to the source. There still needs to be some skepticism till you have, say, in this case, a miner in your hand that you paid for.
Well, can I tell you a little bit about what I was thinking when I made my videos?
Sure. I would love to hear it, actually.
Oh, okay. Well, so my idea for the videos is, let's see, I can do a screen share. So okay, I came up with this idea for this character called the Emperor of Bitcoin. Okay, and he's like a magical spirit who looks a lot like my furry character.
Mm-hmm.
And here's some pictures of him. And here's what I did recently. Anyway, the point is that how do I get back to, there we go. Yeah, so the idea is that he inhabited my mind, and he is the emperor of Bitcoin, and he pretends to be an insane person who thinks that he's the emperor of Bitcoin. So when you watch the show, he's addressing you like he's the emperor of Bitcoin. That's the idea.
Right. That is.
What do you think?
It's kind of cool, though. I mean, it's interesting because it's definitely a different perspective. What was that?
So he says everything from his perspective. That's basically the idea of the show. He doesn't care about your perspective.
Right.
Well, I mean, that's the nature of any opinionated show. I mean, if you're doing material just to convey your opinions, that's what you're doing. You're conveying your opinions, not somebody else's.
All right, guys.
Oh,
hey,
and I
sorry.
forgot to tell you one other thing about the Emperor of Bitcoin. He likes it if you recognize him as Emperor, but you don't have to. And he can't tell the difference between someone who recognizes him as Emperor as a joke to humor his insanity, or because they really recognized him.
It's kind of like you, actually. It's like a Daniel persona. All right, hey, where can we find out more about? I mean, this character, Daniel.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, just my Twitter, Daniel Krawitz, and my YouTube channel. The channel is just Daniel Krawitz, I think.
Bitcoin stuff, right?
Bitcoin stuff. Search for Bitcoin stuff on YouTube. So thanks for having me on the show.
Yeah, I got to.
Thanks for the dialogue. I have to say, guys, it's one of the nice things is even when we disagreed, we were able to discuss stuff in a positive manner without reverting to like personal attacks and all sorts of anger, because that is one thing that's been frustrating in the cryptocurrency space lately. Is even when you're agreeing, sometimes you see people still at each other's throats because they're just so used to fighting. But thank you. I mean, I always learn from this stuff, and it was nice to be able to talk to people in a productive manner. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, nice
Yeah.
to meet you, Scott, and thanks
You
for
too.
enjoying my articles. And nice to meet you, Mr. Troll. I remember you on Twitter. I Troll, I guess. And sorry, I forgot
Lucas.
host name. What is your name?
Lucas.
Lucas. Sorry. Yeah, nice to meet all of you.
No problem.
You too.
And hey, thanks for coming on. I guess Scott, where else? I guess we can find you on Bitsonline. And what's your Twitter handle again?
My Twitter handle is like TalentTech1. Yep.
Great.
And one thing too is we will definitely have a follow up within the next couple of days, because I've been putting all the information, not only that I've gotten myself, but also the stuff that some of our commenters have put up, because I think it's important to have it in one place, because this is an issue, and it's about more than just Cyan. It's about scams in general and how they get through. I mean, that's definitely another learning experience. You can learn it 100 times and take all the precautions, and things can still get through. So I'll have that on Bitsonline next couple of days.
Hey, I appreciate it, Ben. I appreciate you, coming out and telling it the way it is. Really awesome.
Thank you.
And Shinobi, where can we find more about you apart from Block Digest? What's your Twitter handle?
Well, obviously, Block Digest on YouTube and Twitter, and I am Brian_Trolls, also known as I Troll.
All right, guys. Hey, thanks for coming out. I have to cut it short, but maybe I'll catch you guys next time.
Definitely, and thank you for having us on.
Perfect.
Yeah, thanks a lot.
Have a good one, guys. Enjoy.
You too.
Bye-bye.